Mounted light gun games had become massively popular since the release of Operation Wolf in 1987, and it seemed everyone was trying to topple Taito. And why not? This style of game was incredibly easy for anyone to pick up and play. Well, mostly anyone, as you really had to be over about 5 foot to see the screen properly. Sega had decided they would make a game that could be played by even the most vertically challenged person, and Line of Fire came in 2 cabinet forms: the standard upright 2-player one, and a sit-in one that looked huge, which must have been quite the experience, as from these images, it looks like it's trying to resemble the Jeep from which most of the shooting takes place. I had always wanted to find one of these cabinets in the wild, but I have never ever seen one. But the standard 2-player cabinet was the one that popped up just about everywhere, and given Sega had this knack of making some fantastic looking games in the 80s, this one looked head and shoulders above Operation Wolf, visually at least. The game sees the player placed as a member of a 2-man commando team who have been charged with going behind enemy lines to bring down a terrorist organisation which has access to a large arsenal of weaponry. During the mission, the team find a special weapon, which is a vehicle-mounted automatic machine gun, and must report their findings. However, the player is then faced with many enemy troops and military vehicles which need to be destroyed in order for the commando squad to escape in the Jeep, and you must use the special weapon against the terrorists. The game is played from a first-person perspective, obviously, with 2 cabinet-mounted positional guns used to shoot enemies on the screen. There are 8 stages which take place in various settings, including the enemy base, jungle, canyons, desert and ruins. At the end of each is a boss vehicle which must be destroyed in order to progress. Ammunition is limited to a few clips of bullets for the machine gun, a small supply of hand grenades, and a screen clearing missile, although additional supplies can be obtained by shooting the relevant icon when they appear during play. The stages scroll both horizontally and into the screen via a pseudo 3D effect, and due to Sega's dedicated sprite handling hardware and software, the game was able to combine the 2 movements in a single instance, thus effectively creating the illusion of twists and turning corners. This revolutionary engine allowed the player to experience a somewhat convincing 3D landscape. Between stages, a map screen is displayed, which shows the player progressing through the terrorist facility and towards freedom. This outstanding graphical achievement by Sega really did allow the player to feel immersed in the game. It really did help create the sense that you were a part of the action. Even today, I still love the look of this game. To me, it has that classic sprite scaler look, and by that, I mean choppy at slow speeds. The sprite scaling in Outrun, Space Harrier and Hang On looked amazing, but when you slowed things down, you could see it was pretty choppy, and with the setting of Line of Fire, this choppiness is enhanced. But it doesn't make it a bad game, or mean the visuals are bad. Back in my day, absolutely no one ever spoke about frame rates or anything like that, and I bet these days there is someone watching this video who will mock this game for its rather pedestrian 60 frames per second. Or it might even be 30 frames per second. Who knows? I know that I certainly don't care about any of that garbage. The other thing with slow sprite scaling is you get to see some very pixelated enemies as they approach you. This happens as the sprite is drawn at normal size and then zoomed in, when actually the better approach would have been to draw at full scale and then zoom it out. But it's just part of the charm of an 80s game. But the overall look of the game is brilliant in my opinion, and the other thing that is brilliant is the quality of the sound. The sound effects are ear-splittingly superb in this game, from the machine gun fire to the explosions. I think these sounds are lifted straight out from Afterburner, but that doesn't matter when they are put to such great use here. Even the sound of the engine firing up is great, although the boat sounds exactly the same, which is a bit lazy. The tunes, however, are pretty bad. The quality of them isn't bad, in fact, they are very good. But I just have this thing when music seems to be out of fit with the game, and that is the case here. I have never been any good at these kind of games, but that didn't stop me from playing them. Especially when my crackshot mate was about, he just loved this kind of game, and so I would play a 2-player gun game when I could. It did make up for all those times when he would play Golden Axe or Final Fight, as he was not the biggest fan of beat-em-ups. But no matter how rubbish I was at these games, I did always enjoy them. The pure pick up and play value of having a decent blast was always great, and with a mate, it was even better. And the gameplay in Line of Fire is pretty good. The game didn't really do much outside of its visuals to separate itself from other light gun games, but then, what light gun game ever did? And that is a fault of its rather simplistic game design. One light gun game was not terribly different from another. Most critics agreed it was a decent game. Sean Kelly of Zero Magazine called it the best game at London's 1990 Amusement Trade Exhibition, and stated that despite being an Operation Thunderbolt derivative, it goes about 10 steps better. He praised the fantastic graphics and sonics throughout the game, some rather excellent original ideas, and the brilliant two-handed machine guns in the sit-down cabinet. There was praise for the sit-down cabinet, but the reviewer said that this was only lasting appeal, although he found it a nice touch that defeated enemies stay on the screen rather than disappearing after a few moments, allowing the player to survey the scene they have just created. My opinion on the game is pretty similar, but I did have some concerns about it when I first seen it in the arcades. At that time, Sega had been producing hit after hit, mostly sprite scalers, but games like Space Harrier and Afterburner looked absolutely brilliant, but the playability was dull, and Sega had started to develop a bit of a reputation for making dull games playable simply by sprucing them up with fancy graphics. So I did have some reservations when seeing this, but honestly, after a few minutes of playing, you just get absorbed into the game. Yeah, the visuals are vastly superior to Operation Wolf, and so is the sound, but the gameplay is also just as every bit as enjoyable. The guns were really accurate, the sound was really atmospheric, and the whole thing had this more polished feel to it. But when the game got home ports onto the Amiga and Commodore 64 and others, it got mostly panned. The Amiga done a good job on the visuals apparently, but those kind of games were always a struggle to port across. Somehow, using a mouse made the experience a bit numb and less exciting, and that kind of thing fueled the dull game reputation of Sega. Great in the arcades, but once you take away the fancy cabinets and the hydraulic chairs, the gaming experience is dull. Plus, the home ports of Operation Wolf were massively successful for Taito and Ocean. Operation Wolf is a great game, and even today, I will still have a go if I see it about in an old arcade. but Line of Fire for me was ever so slightly better. But do you ever see it anywhere these days? I can't remember the last time I seen one of these cabinets about. It must be over 30 years ago. But Operation Wolf is usually a game that appears at just about every retro convention and old arcades. And I think history has not been kind to Line of Fire in that regard. It definitely appears to be a forgotten classic by Sega, but it is a game I wholeheartedly recommend you go and play, if you can. And that was my look back at Line of Fire. If you like this video, then please do give me a sub and a thumbs up, or maybe even a comment or two below about your memories of Line of Fire on any format. And a massive thank you as always to everyone who has commented on or subscribed to my channel. Your feedback and support really does go a long way in helping the channel grow, and I do appreciate all of the feedback, so it's a massive thank you from me. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.